Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid radio program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Well, good evening, folks. Welcome to the program. I am your host, Scotty Roberts, and this here is my show, the Intrepid radio program. And I'm glad that you're joining us tonight. We've got an interesting show ahead, as usual. And so I want to thank you all for being here. If you're over on any of the smaller channel, I say smaller channels, not the main channel where we're broadcasting, which is our YouTube channel for right now, as we are temporarily a podcast until we get back on the radio station, which is being revamped. And we're also going forward on Rocky Stucci's network, which is still in the works, still just about ready. And so for now, we're just a not even run-of-the-mill, but we are a podcast over on my YouTube channel. And you can find us there if you're listening in other places and you want to join the chat room, which is the best chat room we have for this show, is on the YouTube channel because it's interactive. You go over to Facebook, the different channels over there, or X, or Instagram. You're going to find that you can chat there. The same with the Patreon site, but it's not so interactive. You come over to the YouTube site, it's all interactive, makes it the best chat. And as soon as everybody's over there and chatting, and by the way, if you think I don't, I see a whole hell of a lot of you out there that aren't in the chat room. Come on over. You can listen, yeah, but listen and come over to the chat room. At least introduce yourself, see what the other fellow Intrepids are all about, and have a good time chatting with everybody. And so I am going to, for the moment, I'm going to take down the banner. This is our guest tonight who's coming on in a few minutes. This is Jack Cary. And the title of the show is Bigfoot and Company. That is not his company. We'll tell you a little bit about him in just a couple of minutes as the founder of the Paranormal Intelligence Agency. And all of you are very well aware with Nancy Planeta. Now, this is another guest of hers, a friend of hers, somebody that she knows that she sent me to, and he graciously accepted coming on the show tonight. And so, I'm still, as you can see, struggling a little bit with my lighting. It's either too bright or it's too dull. And so all I've chalked it up to is, you know what that is? That is the camera that is built into this computer system. I will one of these days be upgrading that camera so we can have a little better. See if I back off, you get that? If I do that, you see, yeah. That's what our camera does. So you're going to have to live with that until we've got great studio lighting. I've got gels up there, and I've got gaffer tape over there holding that together and pointing in the directions I want. I've got about 8 different lights pointing in different directions to make this the lighting stuff. Why, thank you, Jeremy Hansen. Here, we'll put that one up, but you're still looking good, he says. I feel like I look really washed out in this light. So, but that's the way it is. You know, I know this is mundane radio compared to the excitement we're going to have ahead of us. But if I did something like, say I go over here, and now you tell me, as a viewing radio audience, if I do this, that takes it down a little bit. Now, my wife told me I look pale today. Oh, are you feeling okay? You look awfully pale. I said, I don't feel pale. So maybe it's just my fish belly white pallor, my down in the studio painting and also working on computer graphics with no windows pallor. So we'll have to live with that and put up with it. And so anyway, all of that really to say thank you all for being here. Thanks for taking your time coming in. We've got a good guest, and he's going to be here in just a few minutes. and we'll bring him in. But I want to introduce you a bit to him. He was the tale given to me about him from Nancy is that this guy knows his stuff, just like we had Brian saying the other night. And Jack Cary, he's the founder of the Paranormal Intelligence Agency. He's a researcher at Crypto Four Corners, and in the past, he's received a top secret S.C.I. security clearance, serving as an encrypted communications specialist on nuclear submarines. He's a published author. I did have a list of his books that I thought I had up here, so let me tell you what some of those are, so you can get an idea of what he is all about and what he talks about and writes about. He wrote such books as Paranormal Planet. I believe this is, yeah, here we go. Well, I wanted to make sure I was giving it the right billing here. Let's see what some of his books are. Now, it took me to a very different thing. I'm going to have him fill me in on the books because I hit his books and I'm getting the first book comes up as Jewish Men Pray. Words of yearning, praise, petition, gratitude, and wonder from traditional and contemporary sources. But his name's nowhere on it. So that's not his book. So I don't know why that came up under Jack Cary books. List of books by author Jack Cary. Let's try that one. Okay, here we go. Here's a couple that you'll enjoy. Paranormal Planet is one of his books. And I wanted to see if it gave us a little bit more information about the book. He's been a paranormal investigator, a cryptozoologist for 25 years. And he's the founder of Paranormal Intelligence Agency.com. And by the way, you can go see that website, paranormal-intelligence-agency.com. And he's the current director of Crypto Four Corners. And he's a regular guest on Ancient Civilizations, Deep Space, and Open Minds documentary series produced by Gaia TV. And in Paranormal Planet, he presents his unified field theory of paranormal activity and chronicles terrifying and the true case files of the Paranormal Intelligence Agency and the Crypto Four Corners. And included is this shocking DNA of Bigfoot. We're going to ask him about that tonight. And very real cases of werewolves and the most disturbing cases in all of paranormal research. By the way, when I say werewolves, I say some of the cryptids that we talk about, those have become the thing of classic movies that we've watched from the 30s all the way up into the 40s and the 50s, 60s, and present day. It doesn't mean these things do not exist in some form or have a history of existing in some form. That's what makes this stuff very interesting, to me especially. And what'd you tell me, Elderberry? He says, hey, how's it going? Now you mentioned it. Told ya. So, not sure what you told us about. You talking to me? You talking to me? Did you rub my lamp? So, it's like talking about things like the jinn and the fairy folk, the fae, when I've talked about those elements. The Nephilim. Are these things that really existed? Or are they all fairy tales? And I think, especially in our modern world, we've taken a lot of this and we've relegated it all to the realm of fairy tale, the realm of storybook. It's kind of like, I like to say it's like the same thing we've done with the biblical stories. We've taken these and we've relegated those all to storybookized. You know, Bible stories are all bathrobes, bed sheets, and sandals. And we don't think of these people in those stories as being real people. Same with cryptids. Same with some of the nightmarish types of legend and mythology that we have. How much of that has its underpinnings in truth and fact? When you look at when we were talking last week about the unseen realm, the gods and the council of the gods. the divine council mentioned in the Bible. That is either a precursor to or an offshoot of some of the older mythologies, which gave us also the Greek gods, Mount Olympus, Zeus, and all of them. So the Bible, as I've said many times, brings with it this pantheon of gods that we don't get to meet all of them or recognize all of them, but it teaches less monotheism than it does a polytheism in its core. And all of that has been a bit adulterated over the years. And it makes it very interesting when you start digging into this stuff. Jeremy Hansen says, I'm in a good place, Scotty. Being Scotty, great guest. Having a Jägermeister sipper and homemade mac and cheese. Life doesn't get any better. Yag and mac. I suppose it couldn't get much worse than that. I have my, cheers to you, Jeremy Hansen. I have my iced coffee. That's to keep me jittery through the show. And I also have my zero, sugar-free zero Mountain Dew. People say, why drink it if it's got no sugar? Well, it's still got caffeine. So, and some days I need that, especially on the days when my wife says I look pale. How about that? So, my pasty pallor is more of, can't you tell that I work indoors and at a computer and with my paints and my canvases and all of that all day long? And some days I don't even see the sunshine. Then I come up and I'm like, oh, it burns us. And my wife says, wow, you look awfully pale today. And so I'd like to pass that off on my lighting today. My lighting is very bright. And you should have seen it before I put I should just take the covering off of that light so you can see it. It was just, and I was all burned out. So after all of that introductory of our guest and a little preamble to what I think on these things, we've got our guest is live over in the wings, Jack Cary. So I'm going to bring him in and you get to meet him now. Now I want everybody, by the way, we're going to do the typical. We're going to go the whole first hour talking to Jack. Jack may or may not be able to stick with us for the second hour. We'll see the course of the conversation, how it goes. But we will be taking calls and questions and have discussion like we normally do in the second hour, which is the after show, affectionately called the Captain's Cabin. And I want to thank y'all for naming it that. And so that'll be hour 2. And so we'll get Jack in here right now, and let's see how things go. Hey, Jack, welcome to the program.
Hello. Nice to be here.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm good. I'm pale and pasty, says my wife, but other than that, I'm all right. So I think I need some more sun. But
yeah, little vitamin D.
Like you, which I just learned today, I didn't know this. Nancy Planetta says that you are an artist, a painter, and that many times you'll paint late into the night, which sounds very familiar to me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Here, I got this sitting right here. Just there you go.
Oh wow.
So
you know what it's like then.
I do. I happen to be working. Somebody that's in the chat room has commissioned me to do a couple of military pieces. So I'm doing battle scenes and things like that. And so I use a combination of watercolor and gouache. What's your favorite medium?
Acrylic.
Acrylic.
Yep.
I went to acrylic once because I hated oil, because it was like, okay, I'm going to paint this. Now I'll wait a week so I can do the second layer.
Yeah, I can't take that. No. I generally complete a painting over the course of one night. I paint all night long.
Nice.
Start 9, 10 o'clock at night, and I'll paint till 6 the next morning, but it's generally pretty much finished at that stage.
What kind of topics do you paint?
I'm a landscape artist.
Okay.
So I paint landscapes, but I paint them in unusual color schemes. And sort of a modern take on landscape painting.
Do you have a place where you got that on display? Do you have like an Instagram where you show that off, or some other place?
Yeah, well, you can go to my website, jackcaryart.shop, and
I'm going to call that up.
See some examples of some of my paintings.
So jackcaryart.shop. You all heard that, folks. You can go over there and take a look at his work. And I'm just calling it up. Oh, see, I like that.
I've got a lot of paintings that aren't on there, but because I haven't actually added all of my newest paintings over the last few months, but they'll be going up soon.
You know, isn't that the story of most creatives, for lack of a better way to put it, is that we've got these websites we've built to show off our work, and then 6 months down the road, we'll go, I haven't added anything to my site.
Right, exactly.
So I got to brush up on that. So how do you balance that with, I suppose, by painting all night, but by doing the other things that you do? Is being the head of, or the founder of the paranormal, what was it, agency, the Paranormal Investigation Agency? Intelligence Agency.
Yeah.
Does that take up a bulk of your time? And do you balance that out against being an artist at home?
I do. The PIA is basically my day job, and I monitor hundreds of different intelligence sources regarding paranormal subject matter every single week, and those go into special reports that I write for my subscribers to the PIA website, which is below my face there. And it's one of those things where it's a constant balance, but it's not like I'm painting every single night. So, I might paint a couple of nights a week, but the rest of the time is spent on investigations and analysis and writing reports and producing YouTube videos, etc.
Yes. Now I got just a taste of some of the things that you do, and just a quick glimpse at some of your videos, and like you, probably perhaps to a certain degree. I've known about you for a few days from Nancy, and I said, oh yeah, I'll go look up his stuff. And it always ends up being the last day, and you're like, I haven't had a chance to go look at all his stuff. I wanted to watch some of what you do. And
sure.
Now, you do a podcast on Wednesday nights too, correct?
I do a PIA radio show for Dragus Productions, and that it's on at 7:00 Central Time. And it's on right before Cafe Enigma, which is a popular show that a lot of people might be familiar with, but I'm often on Cafe Enigma as well on Wednesday nights. So.
All right. So you're a busy man in that respect, and you balance that all. Let me ask you, you don't have to answer this because it's a personal question. You got kids?
I do not. That's one of the reasons why I have so much time on my hands to be able to do all of these things.
I have said often the most beautiful thing about working at home, having my studio here in the house, is that I'm always around my wife and kids.
Right.
I have 3 kids, all ranging from grade school to high school. And then I always say the biggest curse of my life is having my studio where my kids and wife are always there.
Right.
But I want to talk to you and pick your brain a little bit specifically about Bigfoot and cryptids. I've got this baby that's been sitting on my credenza back there it was given to me by Eric Altman, if you're familiar with him, out of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And I can't remember where he said this was from. I thought it was one. He gave one to a different shaped one to Amy Bruni of Ghost Hunters.
Oh, okay.
And then gave me one the same time. As a matter of fact, Amy and I were kind of wrestling over who got which one. And she liked that one. And he said one of them was the print off of a print from the Patterson Gimli's site. I don't know if that's this one or if he mentioned that this is a slightly different one. And my lovely wife who broke me into starting tattooing alongside of doing my illustration work. This was sitting on my desk flat, and this color here was where she was trying to mix up a color for tattoo, and she splattered. I didn't yell or scream or get mad. I just said, "Well," I said, "I think I'm going to have to touch that up with some paint." So,
right. That's funny.
I did take some coffee grounds and rubbed it into to show some of the print and things like that. But there's mine. That's my only claim to being anything close to researching Bigfoot, and it didn't involve any research at all. So
how big of a print is that? Is it about 16 inches?
This is, let's see. Well, I have a very big head, so let's see. I can tell you right now. This is, we got 12 from the end of the heel to the tip of the big toe. You're looking at 12 and what is that? 3? It's 15, a little over 15 inches.
Yeah, and that's the typical size of an adult Sasquatch, is about a 16-inch print, and it's the most common size that we find. So
okay. Now, to me, it looked awfully pristine. It was like you see some of the prints that are like the toes are a little bent because it's slooshing in the mud or something like that. And this seemed like just pretty straightforward. And my initial impression of it was, I asked Eric, "Is that a fake footprint?" And he said, "No, it's a real casting from a casting, an original." And so that's where I thought it was the Patterson-Gimlin one, because it was a recasting. So this is as close as I come. Now, this is your life. This is what you do. And I don't know where to begin to ask you to talk to us about Bigfoot and cryptids. We don't have to stay focused on Bigfoot, but let's start off there, because that's the one that most people are aware of. I talked about, as I read some of your introduction, about werewolves and things like that. I have always been a firm believer in the fae, the fairy folk, the elementals, and different kinds of entities like that. And I say, there is the things there that our culture, especially Western culture, you could say, has subdued. We don't have a purpose or a need for it, just like we've done with gods, angels, devils, demons, all of that. It's all pushed aside. That's why it's become the thing of storybook and so on. Now, you have lived something very different than that. Tell us a little bit about how you got into this. What's the draw, and what are some of the most adventurous, exciting finds that you've run across?
Well, I got into paranormal investigations as an adult, because as a child I had a number of paranormal experiences growing up, and always told myself that if I ever got into a position to actually be able to investigate phenomenon, that I would do so. And when I got out of the Navy and I served on a nuclear submarine, I decided that the time was right to begin to do paranormal investigations. And that's what led me into cryptozoology, because I had a world famous cryptozoologist named J.C. Johnson, who many people will be familiar with, contacted me because he had a case that sort of stretched over the line between cryptozoology and paranormal phenomenon, and he asked me to investigate the case with him, and that led to a very long friendship and partnership, and we began to do cryptozoological investigations together in the field. Most of that was Bigfoot investigations, some dogman investigations, and some cryptid creatures that seemed to defy explanation, and some that were like pterodactyl sightings and things like that that you get in the American Southwest, which we call Lazarus species sightings. But when it comes to Bigfoot, we accomplished quite a bit. I mean, we actually partnered for a while with Dr. Christopher Dyer, who was the executive director of the University of New Mexico at the time, field biologist by scientific trade, and he actually accompanied us to 2 different DNA deposit sites that of DNA being left by Sasquatch creatures. And both sites had eyewitnesses to the DNA being left. So it wasn't like we were guessing that this was Sasquatch DNA. We had eyewitnesses who saw the DNA being left at the scene.
So this DNA, by the way, is that something that when people would hear you say, we have Sasquatch DNA, they'd say their first reaction of the common person would be to scoff at that and say, "Oh, right, yeah, right. Pull this leg and it'll play jingle bells." But you've tested this, and what have you found out about this DNA? What draws you to the conclusion just because it's combined with the sighting and the location and it's credible people? Is that what has brought you to?
Well, that and the unusual nature of the DNA itself, and the roadblocks that we ran into in trying to get the DNA identified. And see, here's the major problem with Sasquatch DNA and with any DNA that's been collected without an actual body, is that all DNA specimens, no matter where they're taken in the world, are submitted to something called the World Genetic Bank. And any subsequent samples that come in are then compared to samples that are submitted to the World Genetic Bank, where they have a body in one hand and they pluck the DNA right from the body and they say, yes, this is exactly the specimen that this comes from. And that gets cataloged. And so geneticists all over the planet, when they get samples, those samples are compared against the World Genetic Bank so that they can make a positive identification of what it is they're looking at. Well, when it comes to Sasquatch, a body's never been recovered. And we have good reasons for that. But because of that, there's never been a sample submitted to the World Genetic Bank in such a way that subsequent samples can then be guaranteed to be Sasquatch DNA. That being said, all of those samples that we collected and approximately 100 other samples from around the country that had been collected by various Sasquatch investigators all went into the so-called Sasquatch Genome Project. And the findings of that project were quite interesting. Unexpectedly, and this finding led many mainstream geneticists to claim that the DNA had to be contaminated in some fashion, but it was not. But unexpectedly, the mitochondrial DNA, which is the mother's lineage of these creatures, the female lineage, had modern human DNA.
Okay.
The paternal lineage, the father's lineage, came back unknown, but closely resembling a primate.
Interesting.
And so what
do you make of that? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what we make of it. The geneticists who did the study suffered a lot of ridicule from other geneticists because of these findings, and yet the findings have held true over time with other samples that have come in, all come back the same time after time. And what we make of it is that somewhere around 15,000 years ago, it appears, there was some sort of primate species on this planet that was close enough to human beings that there was a interbreeding interaction that took place.
Okay.
Now, either that occurred on a natural basis, or these creatures, which the DNA also highly supports, are a type of chimera creature that were created in the past by a non-human intelligence of some kind. And I say that because when the geneticists began really studying the individual DNA strands themselves, there appeared to these people, to these scientists, that there were strands of other kinds of species perfectly fused into the DNA of these creatures. In other words, there were traits of other species that appeared to be perfectly fused in a way that we might attempt to do here on the Earth. I mean, we are doing chimera work in some of our laboratories, and we even were successful a year or two ago, where there was a team of scientists from around the world that were successful in actually fusing chimpanzee and human DNA together in embryos that survived approximately 18 days before they were terminated.
Wow. Yeah.
So we know that this can happen, and we're very, our chimera science is very basic. What if we were talking about an alien intelligence of some kind that were on this planet at some point doing genetic experimentation? A lot of researchers out there that, subscribe to the ancient alien theory believe there was human genetic manipulation that took place. It's not too far of a stretch to believe they fused human DNA with that of another creature of some kind, which produced the Sasquatch species. And there's even an account of a Sasquatch-like creature that goes all the way back into ancient Sumeria and the Sumerian tablets that date thousands and thousands of years ago. And this creature was named Enkidu. It's in the Epic of Gilgamesh, and this was a creature that, when you read the description, might as well be a modern day Sasquatch.
Right. And,
So,
I was going to make mention that in the, for some of the books I've written, I dug into some of the Sumerian cuneiform texts and talking about how the Anunnaki were creating, how Enlil, the chief god, went to Enki, Ea, brother god, and conscripted him, so to speak, to create, as it says in the cuneiform text in updated English, to create primordial man for us to do our work, to dig our canals, to till our ground, and so on, according to that, to that legend. And so now the whole, you're talking about the Gilgamesh of epic, the Epic of Gilgamesh with the creature. I can't think of his name again.
Enkidu.
And he was like the friend and partner of Gilgamesh, was he not? And,
yeah, well, he starts out as an adversary, and they end up becoming friends. So
big hairy dude, warrior type.
Yeah.
So now that's interesting to me. Historically, we have these. What do you think? There's a couple of questions that came up while you were talking that I wonder about. You start bringing the alien possibility into this, and some people, again, will give you that skeptical eye. You're going to get into extraterrestrials now. And of course, I am one of those believing skeptics in that I can accept that, but I'm one of those that says, but I got to see that. I got to get into this. I got to dig it out. And I haven't done that myself. What is there evidence of any kind, or did you just state it by talking about the DNA, that would point to something external to the planet creating species?
Yeah, and that's another area that I am delving deeply into with the discovery, if you will, by some of the finest scientists on the planet of the so-called hitchhiker effect, which is this thing that they discovered as being part and parcel of the overall UFO phenomenon, resulted in some of their findings in actual cryptozoological encounters that they equated as being part of the hitchhiker effect. And a lot of people haven't heard of the hitchhiker effect, but when it comes to the paranormal aspects of the Bigfoot phenomenon, and there are paranormal aspects to it. The ET connection apparently is something that is part of the overall mystery. And it was Jonathan Keel who actually found out that 20% of all credible Bigfoot sightings actually have a UFO also reported at the scene. I myself have been in the remotest part of northern New Mexico in the Chusca Mountains, where one of these DNA deposit sites was discovered. And we came across a disappearing track line of 19-inch footprints that continued in a field where the topography never changed. And we had professional guides with us and trackers. And we followed these footprints, and they started at about a 6-foot stride, and halfway through the field, they turned into a 10-foot stride. So you're talking about a creature that had 19-inch prints in the middle of its own habitat that all of a sudden got spooked by something and took off running midstream. And then right in the middle of the field, right where the prints should continue, it just stops.
Gone.
And there's not another mark anywhere in the field. Our trackers couldn't find anything, right? And my partner, JC Johnson, looks down at the ground and just starts shaking his head in disbelief. I looked up at the sky and started shaking my head because I suddenly had a revelation that whatever had spooked this creature had come from the sky. And being a paranormal investigator and having investigated alien abduction and having known from the Sasquatch Genome Project that these creatures, in fact, do have some human DNA, it wasn't too far of a stretch of my imagination to say, well, maybe they are too being abducted for their DNA samples. And this was just zapped up. But going back to the hitchhiker effect, the chief scientists that were employed by the owners at Skinwalker Ranch, which were Robert Bigelow and now Brandon Fugel, include Dr. Gary Nolan, who most scientists will agree is the smartest scientist on the planet today, were also later employed by the Pentagon as part of its UFO program. And more interestingly than the UFO program was a program called OSAP. And OSAP was founded in order to do nothing more than study the underlying paranormal aspects of the UFO phenomenon. And there was a really good reason for this. And that's because 100% of the people involved with the Pentagon's UFO program, studying the UAPs, as they now call them, went home only to experience a wide array of other kinds of paranormal activity. Oh. In fact, not only that, but once they got home and began to experience this paranormal activity, it began to spread out like a virus. All of a sudden, their relatives would experience it, and then their neighbors, and their neighbors' friends, and their neighbors' kids. And it went out like in concentric circles, this bizarre array of paranormal stuff. And you're talking about everything from poltergeist activity to shadow entities walking across rooms to physical objects materializing and dematerializing right in front of homeowners. And this all culminates, by the way, in a major cryptozoological encounter of a dog man. All of this was chronicled, by the way, in the book Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, written by Dr. Colm Kelleher, one of the chief scientists involved. I highly encourage people to read it because it is fascinating. But the highest ranking intelligence agent to visit Skinwalker Ranch was there one night and experienced a malevolent entity, along with some other intelligence agents, an entity that they couldn't see but could pick up on sensors and things like that. That same night, 1,000 miles away, on his property in Virginia, not far from CIA headquarters, his wife goes to the sink one night, that same night, late at night, to get a glass of water. And she looks out of the kitchen window and sees a upright, bipedal, canine-headed creature standing next to a tree on their property, staring at her through the window.
Oh, that's unnerving.
Yeah, she thinks she's losing her mind, right? I mean, this is a lady that's never heard of a dog man, never heard of a werewolf, she's heard of a werewolf, but never thought she would, she thought she was losing her mind. She just literally shakes it off and goes to bed that night, as disconcerted as she was. The following Saturday morning, at approximately 10 in the morning, and that was on a Wednesday night, the two teenagers of the family are in the game room, and they notice some movement at the window, and they look up and they see a dog-headed creature staring in at them through a window that is 7-8 feet off the ground. They were so amazed that they should have been frightened to death, but instead they ran towards the window, because you never do, you think
right, you don't
somebody's hoaxing something or something's going on. This thing took off running, and they described seeing leaves kicking up behind it as it went. You're talking about a physical creature of some kind, right? And I've investigated dogman sightings, and we've discovered footprints. They leave physical evidence behind. Just like the Bigfoot mystery, there's an ever-increasing wide array of highly credible eyewitnesses to the creatures. There is oral histories, just like Bigfoot, going back for hundreds of years. And I often tell people when I speak at conferences, if you removed the heads of the creatures and just describe the mystery themselves, they're almost identical to one another.
Now, that's interesting, because I'm sure you're familiar with some of this, but there was something about one of the Dead Sea Scroll books that was recent years, decades, unraveled, the Book of Giants, where it talked about ancient experimentation. It didn't use the same language we would use nowadays, obviously, but where they would breed, and you would have a lion that had the head of a falcon, or and every different combination you can think of, because of the crossbreeding experimentations that were being conducted by not earthly creatures, but we're here. And I think you start seeing, Sasquatch has this head, Dogman has the head of a dog, and so on. And I've got to tell you one little account. It was when I was writing my follow-up to the book on the Nephilim. I was writing about the reptilians, and I wanted to look at that from as scientific a point of view as possible, or as down to earth, let's put it that way, more than scientific. And because every account I had ever looked up about the reptilians all seemed to be, I found just the top 10 on a Google search, reptilians and reptilian aliens, I think I typed in. And every one of those had the very same account, none of them with any source attribution, but a lot of it having very Sitchin-like overtones to it. Sure. And so I wanted to dig in a little bit more. And while I was writing this book was when I was digging into the cuneiform texts, the Tale of Atrahasis, and of course Gilgamesh, and all of these, to try to glean some information. And one night, off of our bedroom, master bedroom, faced the back of our property, and we're out in the country out here, but in a neighborhood in the country. And it backed up into not an open field, but full of oak trees, and facing, like, if you take a city block, we were on the end, and that whole thing was like our backyard, it seemed, full of trees. And so my wife was, one morning she said, and my wife's pretty down to earth, and I wish she was down here and she could attest to it. She is here in spirit in that picture there. But she said, I saw a strange figure outside the one. I think she said there were two of them outside our bedroom window in the middle of the night. And there was a small light on in the bedroom, which illuminated these figures looking in the window. And she described them as And she said, I think they were like reptilians or something. Now, she wasn't quite sure what she saw. And I said, why didn't you wake me up? And she said, well, I didn't want you to think I'd gone crazy, which my wife has told me that before. That's tied into this story you were telling. So my wife has seen, and I've always said about my wife, she is a magnet for paranormal activity, ghostly activity, spirit activity, elemental activity, reptilians, or whatever those were she saw outside the window. And by the way, you would had to have been, for what she saw, you would had to have been 8 foot tall to see this much of you in our bedroom window. And otherwise, you'd have seen the top of the head probably. And so she saw these things, and she attracts them. I have always said I'm a bit of a, if you're a Star Trek geek, I'm a bit of an inertial dampener to the paranormal, in that I don't see this stuff the way my wife does. And I'm like, come on, let's get with it. I want to see these things. I want to experience. So that's her story about that. So Dogman, werewolf. My wife described it as reptilian, but I was writing about the reptilian, so that might have been the first thing that came to her mind in the blush that she saw. And it would be like the way I'm seeing your video right now, pitch black, the light from the bedroom, the desk, the credenza lamp shining out the window and illuminating face and torso, and that's what she saw. And so, where do you go with this stuff when you find out this information? Is your mind immediately clicking into, this is a paranormal realm? This is that, as I was doing a series on this show last week, this is the unseen realms we talk about because we're surrounded by it. So you're talking now extraterrestrials. You have talked a bit paranormal. You're a paranormal investigator as well. And I think a lot of us started that way. Very young, curious, got into this stuff. I worked for the Ghost Hunters from Sci-Fi. I was the editor-in-chief of their magazine.
Oh, okay.
So I did some travel with them. And but Rainey and I had done this stuff for a long time. So talk about where you are right now and what your goal is. What are you trying, other than just finding these things, to define them, obviously? What where is this taking you right now? And what have you seen? What have been some of your personal encounters?
Oh, wow. I mean, I had I wouldn't call it a luxury. I had the horrific luxury of seeing a Sasquatch once.
Well, now, was that terrifying to see? Or
Absolutely.
I want to see a ghost. I want to see a Sasquatch, but I think I'd probably pee my pants if I, one stood over me and went, oh.
Fight or flight, and I was there with professional Navajo trackers that where I should have felt, pretty safe and comfortable. But once you see it, your mind is an instant fight or flight.
When you say Navajo, was this Skinwalker Ranch type of area?
Well, this was on Navajo Indian reservation land, deep in the in northern New Mexico in the Tucson Mountains. And this thing, I always thought it would be the size that would scare you. I can assure you, it's not the size that's scary; it's the speed with which they can move. Truly phenomenal, unbelievable speed. That is, when it takes off, is like a blur. And our trackers, for a number of different reasons, including stride and the ability to track them from one water source to another over a given time range, having teams actually between water sources in different areas allowed us to, at one point, determine that one of these creatures could move approximately 70 miles an hour over uneven mountainous terrain. And so that's one of the major challenges you're talking about. You're talking about a creature. And by the way, I reached for my shotgun because it was just an instantaneous, thing. And before I could reach it, the tracker grabbed my hand and said, "If you touch that, we're all dead."
Wow.
And they call this creature Yaetso, is its Navajo. Yaetso. And you're talking about a creature that can run cheetah-like speed over uneven mountainous terrain, that has a human-like intelligence, that travels in small family units, that does something with its dead. People are always like, well, why can't you find a body? Well, this isn't some dumb great ape. You're talking about
that.
Yeah, this isn't some dumb great ape. This is a type of archaic people living still in the wilds of North America, and there are 93 million heavily forested, uninhabited areas in North America.
So, address something I did want to ask you about. If there's approximately 93 million of them living in the wild,
93 million acres.
In 93 million acres. Okay. So if these beings exist in any number at all, what is the difficulty in actually finding one, in meeting one? If they've got human qualities, even a human who is on the run or hiding from other humans searching for them eventually gets found, because of evidence they leave behind and tracking and so on. Why is it so difficult to find them? And is there another dimensional realm to all of this?
Well, there is a definite paranormal aspect to the mystery, which I'm investigating, but I would offer that you're talking about a creature that is highly intelligent. It has 93 million acres that largely humans just don't go into. It literally does something with their dead. They take care of each other in small family units. And there's, a creature that can smell you from 2 miles away, can see you from a mile away, can hear you from a mile away, and doesn't want to be discovered or found, can remain hidden. I tell you, one of the most interesting things that I discovered was that if you overlay a map of all of the Bigfoot sightings in North America, and there's approximately 10,000 of them, and overlay that with a map of the known cave systems of North America, they are a spot-on match. So there's a reason why we believe that and the Native Americans have told us time and again, they live underground. Well, they're utilizing these deep underground cave systems for shelter. That's another reason they're very difficult to discover. But
there was somebody that we just recently saw a movie, my wife and I, that dealt with some guy whose wife had died, played by kind of a quirky, middle-aged to older to 60-year-old man who went out in the woods. He was traversing, trying to discover things, and he runs across, unexpectedly in this movie, Sasquatch. And you never really see Sasquatch in the film, but you see the things going on around him, and he ends up in a cave. He gets lost in the cave and finally is helped out. But then, and this is somebody who is a real person who formed some Sasquatch society of some kind after this. And I believe that happened to him in the 70s or the 80s.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And I can't think of who it is, but there was a quirky actor you've seen in lots of smaller roles in movies and television and so on, played this part of this guy. And I wish I could, I just thought of it off the top of my head, but the cave connection with that is what came out, brought that to mind. So
absolutely. And because of the similarity between the Dogman mystery and the Sasquatch mystery, and because the Dogman mystery has been positively identified, at least in this particular case, with the hitchhiker effect, I spend a good deal of my time contemplating and trying to understand where in cryptozoology the so-called hitchhiker effect ends, and modern day, blood, guts, and hair DNA
Sure.
cryptozoology is still intact. And it's one of those things where every day more and more data comes in, and every day we're more and more perplexed by what's going on. I would encourage, somebody wants to know about the LaFleur County Bigfoot Wars. Well, it's
Yes.
interesting because there's not a lot of historical evidence for it, but there's a persistent mythology about that taking place. And that's right in the heart of where I've been doing Bigfoot research for a very long time now in LaFleur County. But where do we begin to draw the line? Because there's a lot of Bigfoot researchers out there who will tell you that at the same time that they've had a Bigfoot encounter, they've experienced strange orbs of light, or other kinds of paranormal activity. Even some of the mainstream Bigfoot people out there in the world, like for example, let's just take Bobo off of Finding
Right.
Bigfoot.
Yes.
He's been on an interview with David Paulides of the Missing 411 mystery, all of the missing people in North America. David Paulides started off as a Bigfoot investigator, and both of them talk about how they've had paranormal experiences while they were out in the field and in Bigfoot areas and having Bigfoot encounters at the same time. So I'm trying to understand why that relationship exists and how far it exists within cryptozoology.
And that is a good question, because as I mentioned with my wife seeing these things out the window, and I trust my wife implicitly. She's not crazy. She doesn't make shit up. She is somebody who is very trustworthy as far as I'm concerned. And when she brings something up like that, it means something. She's seen ghosts, or what you would call ghosts, from the time we were dating about 20 years ago. And she'd wake up in the middle of the night and see ghosts in our room.
Wow.
And things like that. And we had things that would happen to us, blankets being pulled off of us in the middle of the night. I remember that happening vividly. And different things that we've experienced. We weren't even dating yet, and she had an experience with taking a shower at my house, and the drawers in the vanity in the bathroom were opened and shut. Things like that. All of these kinds of things have stacked up. And then as soon as I'm writing a book about the reptilian factor, she has this, which my first reaction, of course, was, well, you sure you weren't dreaming, that your mind was creating something? I wasn't doubting her. I was just asking, you sure you were awake? Because I've been writing this book, and maybe that's on your mind. She's like, oh, no. She said, I saw it. And I said, well, what did you do? And she said, I just turned over and cuddled up next against you and went back to sleep. And she said, I wasn't worried, but I saw them, and was only worried that you would think I was a little nutty. And at the time, we'd been married, I think, about 5 years. I said, honey, if you're nutty, I'd have known it by now. So, but yeah, those kinds of things, do they all stack on top of each other? You say ghost hunting, and the other, is it because you had mentioned that the people who, I can't remember the exact thing you were talking about, but people who've seen these, they'll go back home and then they'll start experiencing it, and other people around them will start experiencing, and so on. Is there something about, I don't know, talking about them, being interested in them, seeing them, that attracts them to you?
That's quite possible. One of the hitchhiker effects happened to a sailor on the Nimitz, and the sailor simply was shown a video of the Tic Tac UFO the day it happened. He got a very strange feeling that came over him at that moment in time, and after that began experiencing a wide array of paranormal activity, which culminated in an alien abduction. Now,
Oh boy.
the report that OSAP gave to the Pentagon officials claimed that there was also an unaccounted for pregnancy
Oh,
as part of the overall
oops.
hitchhiker effect. Oops, that's a big one, right?
Yeah.
When you're talking about alien abduction
Oh
and
man.
the hitchhiker effect, and so right now they're just trying to. They make the statement in their report that until they can understand the underlying paranormal aspect of the UFO phenomenon, they'll never be able to understand the phenomenon itself in totality. That's how prevalent it is. So where do we begin to even sort that out as investigators? That is just absolutely bizarre. And does that point to the idea that this is in fact interdimensional in nature, as I theorize in my unified field theory of paranormal activity in my book, Paranormal Planet? I believe there's only two kinds of paranormal activity. One is interaction with a type 3 society, which accounts for most UFO activity, and the other is interdimensional in nature.
Okay.
And are we witnessing a kind of quantum entanglement with this phenomenon that allows it to exhibit all kinds of paranormal activity after initial contact?
So would you say saying I have encountered a ghost, that might be part of the quantum entanglement, that might be interdimensional? Frankly, if somebody dies and they have a soul or a spirit that goes elsewhere, that's got to be interdimensional on some level.
Right.
I mean, I've had a friend of mine who died a year ago who spoke to me via equipment, his voice and everything, my son as well. And so you experience that and you say, what is that? What is that really? Is that really him? Is it really? So what do you attribute that all to? Is that, I'm sorry, is that where you would categorize what people think of as the common paranormal, which is seeing ghosts, seeing spirits?
Yeah, and I don't know. And there again, where do we draw the line between what has always been traditionally held as a completely separate type of paranormal activity from, let's say, extraterrestrial activity?
Right.
That is where the hitchhiker effect is making things so difficult for us to truly understand.
Sure.
And I'm sure there's plenty of seasoned ghost hunters out there that utilize, the history of the property, etc., that are able to determine that who they're dealing with is, a human from that particular property or whatever. But here, you have poltergeist activity of stuff just flying across the room.
Yeah.
You have these black shadow entities walking across people's bedrooms in the middle of the night. Orbs of light, and that was another thing. So one of the major side effects of the hitchhiker effect were apparent orbs of light that these various people involved with the UFO program would end up seeing. Even one night, for example, and this was a true story that occurred, one of the people involved with the UFO program went to walk his dog one night with his wife and had an orb appear and began to follow them. It then shot towards them and went through her cheek, one cheek and out the other side. And she shortly thereafter came down with a type of metastatic cancer.
Oh.
Now that wasn't a isolated case. In case after case, people involved with the UFO program at the Pentagon experienced these light orbs, had close contact with them, and then experienced deleterious health effects because of it.
Wow. Well, see, and that's crazy. I've only seen, I've picked up orbs, and you pick them up in pictures, and of course they're a bit dubious. You don't know what you got. I've only seen with my physical eyes one orb. We were at a little inn out in New Hampshire that had been purchased by Jason and Grant of Ghost Hunters. And I was there with their wives and the night watchman of this little inn. and they're touring me around this place. They were just getting ready to open it up. And we went into the back room behind the front desk. So little hallways, kind of twisted back in there, and old building. And they said, now this is the room, they said, where old man Spaulding, it used to be known as the Spaulding Inn, had committed suicide. He shot himself in the head. And I'm in front of them, and I got the two wives behind me, then their night watchman, we called him the Wookiee because he was this big and had weird hair. And he's in the back. And as she's telling me that, I'm opening the door, turning the doorknob and opening it. And the lights were off in that room, but they were on in the hallway. And I said, well, that's interesting. And as I opened the door, saw a green orb in the middle of the room. And it was just, it glowed, and then it went, zzz, and it zapped out in all directions.
Wow.
And as I turned on the light, and it was gone. And there was not a light bulb up there or anything like that burned out. It was really weird. But,
that's
so
great.
I've seen some of those things and wonder about them. Listen, I want to talk to you some more. It's already after 10 o'clock, believe it or not. I don't know if the time has flown for you the way it has for me. Are you able to stick around? You can tell me no if you can't. You're not going to hurt my feelings.
Actually, I can't this time because I've got a lot of family members in town for the weekend. And,
got it.
They're waiting on me, but I would love to at some point come back on and do just that. So
I would love to have you back on again, and because we really only hit one facet of what you do, and I want to get more. I want to know more. So I'll be in contact with you. So the best place for people to look at you and what you're all about is this Paranormal Intelligence Agency.
It is. You can always contact me, by the way, at paraintelagency.com on just the contact form at the bottom. But you can also go to my YouTube channel, Jack Cary, and I've got 85 different research videos on there. Each video covers a different paranormal mystery or phenomenon. And where I try to differ in my videos is I collect all of the best available evidence for a given phenomenon, and I present that as a case for that phenomenon in each one of those videos. So people can find out a lot of my research work that way.
And I've got a link to that Nancy had sent me, so I'll paste that in for people to take a look at.
Awesome.
All right. Well, Jack, I appreciate your time. And as always, for me, a good conversation, it's over too quick.
Yes.
And there's so many other things I'd like to ask you about and other areas that you're in that I'd love to delve, and we'll do that another time.
Excellent. I love it.
Thank you for your time, sir. And we will talk to you again soon. You have a good time with your family.
All right. Thank you, sir. Enjoy your weekend.
And you too. Bye-bye. All right, folks, that was Jack Cary. So we're going to come back, and I'm going to open up for the captain's cabin. So none of you go away, because we're actually going to just go into a break like we do every day. And we'll come back from the break and open it up into the after show, the captain's cabin, and you can call in and we can discuss these things. So all of you, if you got to go, I understand. And to you, I say, live long and prosper. And everyone else, I need you to just sit tight, because we're going to be right back. Stay tuned.
The Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Hey folks, this is Scotty Roberts, and this is the Intrepid radio broadcast. I've been broadcasting for about 20 years now, covering such topics as science, politics, the paranormal, weird science, weird world history, archaeology, and the paranormal. Everything from ghosts to cryptids to creepy things that go bump in the night. So every week I bring you 3 new episodes. Come and join my channel and also be a patron to this site. So see the details below, and we'll see you here.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hi, I'm my dad. So he can take me to Disneyland.
Dave, I love you, brother.
I miss you too.
I miss you too, I heard.
Yep,
Did you guys hear that?
I heard that.
I miss you, Dave. Well, and welcome to the captain's cabin, everyone. I wish we could have kept our guest sticking around a little bit longer, but he had other familial obligations to go to. And so it was a good discussion. I hope we can get him back sometime soon to talk about more of this. So, Elderberry, you had said toward the end, before he had to go, you said we're talking about real orbs, not those faint dust particles that are baseball sized. Yeah. Baseball sized orbs. Yeah. That's what I would have said this one was. This green one I saw had to be about that big, softball size from the look of it across the room. This was not your little white dusty orb that did this. It was stationary and it went zzz, and the electricity went out of it on both sides and it zapped out. And everybody, the women behind me were like, whoa. And the Wookiee said something like, I see those all the time around here. So, and very interesting. So, our Elderberry. Elderberry, I should show this to you because it's sitting right over here. I got about another day or so work left in this. But this is one of the pieces I'm working on for Elderberry. And this is where it's at right now. And I'll show it to you. So we're just about there. We're getting there. So that is the, I've got to fill in Sir Forster himself on top of the horse on the, if you're looking at this, the horse over here on your right. And I've got to fill in a couple of guys down underneath the horse and a couple of guys in the mist in the background and the castle in the background. It's all dust being raised up, as you can see underneath the horse there. So that gives you an idea of where that's at. We got King Richard the Lionheart being saved from the ambush of the Saracens by Sir John Forster, who I will be working on in the morning and completing him tomorrow. And then the rest of the background. So there you go. There it is, Elderberry. So it's getting there. Elderberry commissioned me to do 2 military pieces. That's one of them. And then we start on the Battle of Brandywine Creek as soon as I finish this one. So totally different time period. So, and by the way, I took the gels off and all of that, and you can see what the lights are doing here. So, there it is. There it is at full bore. And that kind of, it's interesting. Now that I've got all the bright lights on, I'm still washed out, but you can see things a little better, and that's interesting. All right. So, yeah, that guy, Pithed, was having a very bad day. So will the guy that's underneath the horse, who you can't see. You'll see his legs are sticking out from underneath the horse as he got trampled because he was in the way. So, so that's what I've been working on all day, every day. Well, I will admit there are some days, a couple of days this week, I haven't even gotten to it, although I've been working on it all week because I get so buried with a bunch of other stuff that's going on around here that I want to get that done. That'll be done probably in 2 days, Elderberry, just to let you know. And I may ship that one separately to you when I'm done with that. And then I'll be working on the new one. So, yeah, we could do a story on that Third Crusade. That was the Third Crusade led by Richard the Third, Richard the Lionheart. Very familiar with him through the Robin Hood legends is where you know him from. And he was pretty majestic looking king. I was looking at some of the paintings that were done of him, Elderberry and others. You know, some of my favorite ones, or my favorite one was the painting of him done by N.C. Wyeth, who illustrated a lot of the old fairy tales or the storybooks character. He illustrated the adventures of Robin Hood, Treasure Island, and many others. And his father was Andrew Wyeth, a famous artist as well in the 19th century. And so extraordinary paintings. But his work had what I would call, I kind of look at it, and Rainey once said, well, your work kind of looks like his. In a sense, I don't use the same mediums he uses, but he has a bit of a cartoony edge to his work, but not cartoon. So I have to be very careful by using that description. But you've seen his work. I'm going to show you a couple of his paintings, and you'll be fascinated by the stuff that he's done. Here, let's do this. I'm going to just for the hell of it, and I'll find the Richard III or Richard the Lionheart painting as well in here, Elderberry. But let me share my screen because I want you to, let's see, entire screen, boom, and share. Okay, here we go. I think you'll be really interested by his art. Here we go. N.C. Wyeth. This is, I said 19th century. I think they were early 20th century. Late 19th, early 20th century artists. But N.C. Wyeth images, you'll take a look at his work and immediately see what I'm talking about by the style of illustration that he does. I'm going to go to large images so we can bring these up. Like, for instance, I'm looking for his Robin Hood here. Let's see, but you can see these images here. And how they look, and you can see his style. Let's see. I'm just looking to see he has a Robin Hood. He did Treasure Island, like I mentioned. This is one of his Treasure Island paintings or pirate paintings. Something Indian on horseback. I'm looking for more of his. Here's Treasure Island. This is Old Pew. You remember him? He was the blind man and the black spot and all of that. This is from Treasure Island, so you can get a taste of that work of his. And also, was this it's called Astrologer, but this might have been an early Arthurian Merlin concept. So here you go. This is the type of work he did. So very illustrator's style with a realistic edge to it. Here's one of his King Arthur paintings. This almost looks like watercolor from the board that it's on. You can see the texture of the board that he's working on here. So that's N.C. Wyeth's, that's King Arthur, and Merlin, of course, in the back of the boat. And I'm going to look for N.C. Wyeth's Robin Hood, because some of these paintings of his from Robin Hood are very much in the public literary realm, and things that you might be familiar having seen. And I'm going to the larger images so I can actually call them up a little bigger. So I've got I've actually got this book with this particular painting on it, and right here. So open image, a new tab. It's not a very large image, but Robin Hood, Little John, running through the forest, laughing back and forth at what the other had to say, reminiscing this and that, and having such a good time. Oodle-lada, oodle-lada, golly, what a day. Here's more Robin Hood. That seems to be a very dark image to look at, though. That's more of his Robin Hood. Here's another one of the this is a much better version of the Robin Hood cover art. There you go. So that's N.C. Wyeth's style. And I love his style as an illustrator. And in my earlier days, I patterned a lot of what I do in my work off of what I learned off of seeing him. And this is again from Robin Hood. I love his buildings, but he had this billowy cloud thing that he did in a lot of his paintings. You can see it here in this that's not Robin Hood, that's Last of the Mohicans. You can see how he did his clouds. I patterned a lot of what I do with clouds in my illustrations after that. Robin Hood and his men shooting from behind the tree. I want to find you another picture of his clouds. Well, there's that one we just looked at. And he had these beautiful, billowy clouds that he would put into his illustrations. See if I can find it without and get out of the Robin Hood stuff here. You just got to go back a few. Okay, let's go back. Go back one more. Here you go. Stuff like this. Take a look at this. So there you go. Like his clouds. Kids seeing giants in the clouds and so on. I've patterned a lot of my cloud illustrations and pictures off of what I learned from looking at N.C. Wyeth's work. So just amazing stuff. I love what he does or did. And there you go. This is from King Arthur. So there it is. That's his work. And I love the way he paints. And if I could ever be as good as he is, I would be a happy man. I love paintings like this of his as well. Open this up in a new tab. Look at that. And you get close enough, you can see the brush strokes and all. You back it off. Oh, what a gorgeous painting. So N.C. Wyeth, look up his work. I've got a big book of his still in my library. And N.C. Wyeth, Art for Sale. Here's another one with the big clouds in it. Look at that. There you go. I love the look of his work. And I have over the years attempted to emulate that style, or when I was very young, trying to incorporate that style into what I do. Into what I do. And so let me stop the screen right there. So you can see by some of this how his style had a huge influence on my style. So, although I can also attest to having comic books having a huge influence on my style as well. So that gives you an idea. And once I get all the misty dust, it's not mist, it's dust being raised by the horses and the people, and there'll be castle in the background, the villa, the fortress at Acre in Israel, where this is taking place during the Crusades. So that's the piece right there. All you got to do, Elderberry, when you get these paintings, you got to frame them exquisitely. So, what's that, Jeremy? Oh, thank you, Jeremy. I think Scotty has a plethora and variety unmatched by any artist. Thank you, sir. I sure appreciate that. Yeah, those are going to look cool in your house, I think, Elderberry. So they'll be fun to have. My daughters I gave to my daughters, Abby and Bryn, for Christmas one year, several years ago, a couple of pictures that they couldn't take with them on the plane, and they've been here for years, just in my studio. So, or they had them here and then moved away. They were Tam O'Hare, some of the illustrations from Tam O'Hare, which I've got sitting over here. If I were to show you, they would look like this. Let's see, I got 3 of them here. So I'll show you what I got. They look like this. This one is from the only horizontal spread in the book This is one 2013. So this was 11 years ago. I gave this to my daughters, and they've been sitting here. They were on my wall because they couldn't take them with them on the plane. And so they're here. That's the big double spread of Tam's ship. This one has slipped a little bit off of its moorings underneath. All of these have. I had these done at a professional studio. These cost me quite a bit of money to have these framed. So I've got that one that's framed up. I've got this one, which is this was to Abby. And this is the scene where Tam O'Hare had a sword fight with the pirate captain, Seamus Duggery. Seamus Duggery was actually one of my early monikers on the internet. Well, at least 11 years ago. Well, more than that, 15 years ago when I wrote the book. So that's that one. And then there is also this one. This is the one that has slipped a bit and has to be opened up and reframed. But there's the Moreau, the Gaelic for the mermaid, Tam's ship. And that was before my daughters were doing mermaid stuff. So maybe highly prophetic. That one I've got to take in and get it fixed. And these were all no, this one's Rainey's. So there, I signed them all and wrote notes on all of them for my kids and my wife. And a couple of pieces got sold early on. So I don't have some of them anymore anyway. But there you go. Painting and anybody want to call in? We'll talk a little bit tonight about our guest. We can talk about painting and pictures, and or we can all go to bed a little early tonight. Whatever you'd like to do. So I leave it up to you now. I give it to you to call in. And let me, while you're thinking about that, I'm going to play this 1-minute ad that I redid today. YouTube, my ad for my Scotty Roberts illustration and design that Rainey narrates and Rowan is at the end as a little girl. And I kept getting hits on that whenever I'd play it because it had in the background track, it had a piece of music, bagpipe music, reel from Gaelic Storm. And the problem was that I had flattened that and I couldn't find somewhere on a disc the original recording. And I wanted that recording. Not that I couldn't have Rainey re-record it, but I could never get my 4-year-old daughter, 3 to 4-year-old daughter on there ever again. And I wanted to keep that. And so I had YouTube hit me again the other day because I played it the other day with a copyright hit. Oh, we can't monetize your video. And so they've got the technology now. They say you can either drop the ad, erase it from your video. We'll do that on this end. Or you can drop the music and keep the talking that's there. And I thought, well, let's give that a try and see how that works. And about an hour later, the ad was, okay, you're remonetized on that video. We've been able to strip the music piece out. And I played it, and it was pretty well done. And what you heard in that ad tonight, which I'm going to play for you again, is that piece where they went in with technology. There weren't separate tracks. It was a flattened track. But they were able to go in and pull out the music and retain the voice. So I did that. So now I can play this ad again without getting a copyright hit. So if you're watching 1 minute advertisement, I'm going to play right now. Might be 1 minute and 1 second long, but I'm going to play this for you. And this is how it turned out today. I changed it up a bit, and I wanted to retain Rainey and especially Rowan she's now 12, almost 13, from when she was 3 or 4 years old is when we recorded this. So here it is.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad, so he can take me to Disneyland.
That ad makes me smile every time I hear my little girl's voice in that. And she's so sophisticated now, you know, makeup and eyelashes and the hair, and she's starting to develop a figure like her mom's. Not even starting. She's already got it. She's just a 12 going on 13-year-old with it. And that's scary enough. But light years from my sweet little 3 going on 4-year-old girl. And it was 8 years ago, so she was 4. And I love her cherubic voice in that. And she just it's really nice to see. Let's see. I really want to copy Sir Forster's sword hilts, says Elderberry. I can find blades, but I want to get close pictures. Now, by the way, if you didn't notice this, Elderberry, I'm putting his sword in here. I took one of his swords, and if you look, I don't know if you can see there, you can see it in the light pencil in the background. I've taken one of the swords and hilts from the picture of his armor, and I put that sword in. Now, something else I'm adding here is just behind his elbow, just like you see King Richard's shield on the back of his saddle, hanging from the back of his saddle there. I'm going to put his Forester. I'm going to take the Forester logo or heraldry off of his armor and put him in a sleeveless white cassock with a red cross for the Crusades, and put his Forester heraldry on his shield hanging from his horse, kind of behind the sword and behind his elbow there. So that would take up a space right here. You'd see his shield hanging here and down. Oops, I'm doing this backwards. There you go, that way. So his shield would be right in this area. Backwards. So there you go. But I've got his sword in there, so I'm going to paint that sword hilt in there as well. So, and by the way, I also grabbed these because they were sitting right there. This is a totally different style of art that I've done. You may have seen these. This is animation cell art that I did of, and this was for some comic book properties that we were selling when we were out in LA. Selling, so it's an animation cell. There's the background art, and then the cell went over the top. And so that was Cull Baron the Conqueror, and then we had the Ventura Boys. I've talked about that story before. And that, again, is an animation cell. Uh-oh. That's not a good sound. Oh, it's taped down. That's all it was. So there's the background, and it's taped down there. That was the background art, and then the animation cell on top. Well, back when they were doing cell animation. So anyway, there's that. All right, we got 10:41 and no callers tonight. My regular talkers are not here, and my irregular talkers are not calling in. So we may just, thank you, Scott Allen. Loves the colors. Thank you very much. And as I mentioned to you, Scott, I paint, and Scott's an artist too, folks, if you didn't know that. Some of his illustration work, you'll have to go look him up and look at some of his work. But we were talking a little bit about medium, And I use my watercolors fairly unconventionally. I use watercolor and I use gouache, which is a little, for best way to, a little thicker, more opaque paint than a watercolor, but the same basic concept. And so I use those, and I use, of all things, and I learned this years and years ago. This is for Scott's benefit. I will get this. It's 25 years ago. I would pick up some of this Pro White, and I use the Pro White. All it is it's like a whiteout for painting, and it gets dried up in there. You can see it's all dry. It's just a big block in there now, but you add water on your brush, and it lightens it up. So I will use that to do things like these. This was done, 25. This was done in the early 90s. And you can see the reflection in the water down here, and a lot of the clouds back in here. That's where I use that Pro White, and I mix color into it sometimes. And I've got it here on this one. You see all these highlights on this painting. You see all the highlights, like you see the guy right in front of the horse with his arms up, and you see the reflections on his helmet and the shoulder armor he's wearing. And everywhere in here where you see what looks like a white highlight is all done with, I paint my colors in, and I put in my darks to my light colors, and then I will go in with the Pro White and enhance my reflective balls on the helmets and the metal and stuff like that. So, and I'll use it for the dustiness and things like that. So that's how I do that, very unconventionally. So, but it works, and it's worked for me for 30 years. So there you go. I did a screenshot. Thank you. What kind of paper do you use? This is I can show you exactly what I'm using on this. This one is done on board, and the board is a crescent. It's not telling me on here what kind of crescent board this is. Hang on. Need my glasses. It might be on the little tab on here. I got to check. This is crescent, which is illustration board. Hot press, medium weight is all it says. It's a 15 by 20, 38.1 centimeters. It's a Crescent 215 IP, and it's a hot press, which I like because I always got the hot press because I didn't want it totally absorbing my watercolor. I wanted it to be a little harder surface so I can paint on it and not have the colors slip on it, but it will soak up the colors a bit, but it's not super absorbent. So, and I liked that because I used to do a lot of watercolor with pen and ink afterwards on the top. And so that's the board I use for this. And I don't know if I just did that or if I did that earlier. So I've got a few of those left, but that's the board I did there. And I started that painting of Sir Forster and Richard the Lionheart with, I put down a yellow ochre wash over the whole thing. And then when I do the wash, sorry to keep bringing this up. I don't know if there's any places left on this where it really shows, but if you see like in the background behind the horse's head, you see that's the elbow to the hand of Sir Forster with the spear in his hand. And so what I did, and you can see it in some of the guys in the background, I would just take yellow ochre, and then I would take yellow ochre again and go over the top and start doing all my basic shading. And which I didn't do with Forster yet because I wanted to make some changes on him. And then I go in with a burnt sienna, and you can see the leg of this guy way over here that's sticking down underneath this guy. I can't do this backwards. So you see his leg, that's still got just the burnt sienna that I haven't put any color into yet. So, yeah, that's the bases. And there's the guy's feet coming out from under, kind of tripping the guy that's being speared, but he's laying underneath the horse. You can see him there. So, that I had mentioned earlier. So, there you go. Just a little art talk between Scott and I. So, anyway, that's that. So, it's now a quarter of the hour and 13 minutes to the top of the hour. I'm done talking. And since there's no callers, we're going to call it tonight, right here and right now. And I want to thank again Jack for being with us tonight. Jack Cary, you can go look him up. He's on Facebook, Cary, Jack Cary. Here, we'll just put up his banner here. And so Jack Cary, you can find him at his website. It's the Paranormal... I can't remember exactly how he shortened it. There it is. Paraintelligency. Paraintelligency. There you go. That's his website. So you can go check him out and check out what he does. You can find him, Jack Cary, over on YouTube, and look up some of his videos. Yeah, isn't that the truth? Elderberry says King Richard was fighting for the hair on his ass that day. Yep. He almost didn't make it. If Forrester had not intervened, he would not have made it. Elvis is smashing the like button. Smashing the like button. So, because Elvis is in the room. Thank you, Elvis. I appreciate that. And everybody, if you're on the YouTube channel, please do hit the like button. That just helps me out over there. And that's all I got to say about that. All right, everybody, thank you for being here. We're going to call it for tonight, and I'm going to send you all toddling on your way. You don't have to go to bed. You don't have to go home. You just can't stay here. So, because we're going to be gone. So thank you for being here. Thank you for giving me your time, and thank you for being patrons to this show. It means a lot to me. And I hope you're enjoying the guests that we've had on. We'll have more coming next week. And we'll also get into some other things as well next week. So thank you for enjoying this show enough to be here and patronize it. That's all I got to say. And if you want to help support this show, you can hit the little join button down below the screen over on YouTube. There's 3 ways you can become a member. And you can go over to the Patreon site, patreon.com. Oh, and I never even put the branding up here of the banner. Boom. It's on there. Patreon.com/Scotty Roberts. And you can, for $4 a month. If I had 1,000 people that listen to this show, put in $4 a month, the amazing things we could do with this show would be fun. So there it is. If you want to do it. I don't want to sound like I'm always about money. And Elderberry said it best. Scotty don't paint no pictures without no money. He said something like that the other day. And I said, damn Skippy. Because there's things we do for a living. And then there's things we do for free. So if you want to help support the show, you can do that. Elderberry, I'm excited about the painting too. And I'm looking forward to getting into the Revolutionary War with the Battle of Brandywine Creek after this one. So, yeah, there's always Twitch, says Scott Allen. I got to look into that. There's several of these. Again, it's time. I got to go look at it. Then I got to set it up. And it just takes time to set it up. And it's one of those things where I just push the stuff out because it's like, look, it's working right now and I don't have time. So maybe I need to make time and do that. But we'll see what we can do. Terry Pitts, thanks for being here. You have a good evening too, brother. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for being here. And everybody else, thanks for being here. Thanks for being here with your thinking caps on and for patronizing this show. Not patronizing, patronizing this show. So at that, I'm done. And we're out of here. Live long and prosper. just going to come back in for a second. And because of this, Scott Allen, thank you very much. And everybody, if you want to do that, you can do that too. Thank you. I appreciate the donation. Have a good night. Oh, have a good night was supposed to be my, and I'm out of here. And then I didn't hit the right thing. So have a good night.